Thank you, Mayor Khan, for sharing those thoughts with us and for the compliments that you've given to ERG today. We very much appreciate that. We have been fighting hard to understand the issues here in London for a long, long time, and we are happy to have provided the evidence which helps you develop the policies which we both believe are so important to introduce. So, and thank you very much for your time today. We really do appreciate that your diary is incredibly busy, and to take the time to come here for a little group like ours to just say those words it's very, very important to us, so thank you. Now, I know you have to go very soon, but you have agreed to take a couple of personal questions.
Sure.
I've been thinking about these for a while. So, we all appreciate that it's really, really difficult for the public to understand the impact that air pollution, this invisible thing, is having on their health. We also appreciate that, in fact, indoor air pollution is often worse than outdoor air pollution. And we spend 80–90% of our time indoors. So, can you tell me, you've done a lot for things happening outdoors with your ULEZ policy. Can you also develop an approach to improve understanding and maybe improve indoor environments in our public buildings, in our schools, in our health facilities? Yeah. Is that on your agenda?
Sure, thanks, Frank. So yes, it is, but let me explain the problem we have, all of us have, is whether it's indoor air pollution or outdoor pollution. If we were meeting here in the middle of the 19th century, I'd be sharing with you that on my journey here, I could smell a big problem. The great stink caused by open sewers, cholera, major cause of thousands of deaths in London, which led to the famous Bazalgette sewers, which helped hygiene outdoor and indoor sewers, indoors and so forth. If I was coming here in the middle of the last century, the middle of the 20th century, I would share with you that it was difficult getting here because of the great smog. Every couple of meters it was difficult to see, caused by power stations in the centre of our cities, which led to the Clean Air Act. Thousands of people died because of the great smog. So the great stink and the great smog. The problem with air pollution, Frank, whether it's indoor or outdoors, you can't see it. Often you can't smell it. And that's where you are incredibly important to firstly educate people how bad things are and then take action after getting permission. So with your help, Frank, we did a number of things a few years ago. We firstly put on children air quality packs. So it measured how bad the air was or good the air was, walking from home to school in their home, and those kids that were in cars going from home to school and then inside the school. And it was a eureka moment for the schools and the parents, because they realized the air was often as bad, if not worse, inside their homes and inside the schools. So we've done a number of things to raise awareness and then to take action. And so we've got a certain number of schools doing air quality audits to find out how bad their schools are, indoors as well as outdoor. We've got a pollution hot desk that helps them. But also technology is a wonderful thing when used properly. Certain types of paints, certain types of flooring, certain types of filtration systems, but simple things like where your windows are in a classroom. You can use basic O-level for those of us of a certain vintage, or GCSE biology, those of you who are younger, photosynthesis, planting, greening walls and so forth. It is a big problem because people don't realize simple things like when you're driving a polluting vehicle, the driver of the vehicle and the two kids behind you are breathing in poison, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to do lots of work on outdoor air pollution and on indoor. The big problem we have with indoor, Frank, is our limited powers. Wood burning stoves, some of the solid fuels being burnt. So we're working with councils. We've set up a task force with councils to try and do more there. One of the things has got to be raising awareness about some of the stuff people are burning indoors. They don't realize the solid fuels and stuff. And so education is the key here, raising awareness about how bad things are. There are still people challenging, Frank, you'll know this, which I suspect led to you writing the letter with the colleagues. There are still people doubting that around 4,000 people die prematurely because of air pollution in London. There are still people doubting around 36,000 people die in our country because of air pollution. There are still people doubting the links between air pollution and dementia, cancer, heart disease, asthma, and so forth. And so we've got to educate people about these issues. That's where, because of your credibility and you are impartial, you don't get involved in party politics, I need your help.
Thank you. So another issue I know that's close to your heart is air pollution is increasingly seen as a social injustice issue for those on lower incomes and living in social housing, and is this something which keeps you awake at night?
Can I look for those? So the reason why I got involved in politics was because of my passion to address social injustice. I used to be a human rights lawyer, and my passion there was to address social injustice. But this is the thing that people don't realise. The issue of climate change on a macro and micro level, the issue of air pollution on a macro and micro level is an issue of social justice, an issue of social justice and racial justice. Why do I say that? So in London, it's those, roughly speaking, half our households don't own a car. Half our households don't own a car. In outer London, where we're expanding the ULEZ to, those who earn below £10,000, more than 70% don't own a car. Those who earn between 10,000 and 20,000, 54% don't own a car. Those least likely to own a car suffer the worst consequences of air pollution. So it's an issue of social justice. But also, I'm afraid, because of a variety of reasons, poorer Londoners tend to be Black, Asian, minority ethnic Londoners and tend to live on main roads where there's the worst quality air. And so, Black Londoners, Ella being one example, the 9-year-old child who lost her life in 2013, disproportionately suffer worse quality air. So if you're passionate about tackling air pollution for a variety of reasons, your motivation could be science or because you care about health consequences, you also address a social injustice and a racial injustice. And the point I've made to Frank privately on a number of occasions is some people may have genuine concerns about our policies. Let's work with them to address their concerns. But latching onto those people with a genuine concern are political opponents, conspiracy theorists, COVID deniers, anti-vaccine people, climate change deniers. They believe in some other theories, and they're latching onto this. They're a minority making a lot of noise. I call them the vocal minority. There's a silent majority who want to address this health crisis, this environmental crisis. And if they knew, not only is this a health crisis, but it's actually an issue of social injustice and racial injustice, we could bring them on side in relation to this really important issue. But here's the problem. Around the world, a number of progressives are hesitant to take action on green issues, air pollution issues, because they think they're unpopular. You lose arguments, you lose votes, you lose elections, and that's what led me to write the book that Frank, you very kindly came to the launch of a couple of weeks ago. I've written a book called Breathe. My agent has asked me to say that.
Copies are available outside.
It's called Breathe, Tackling the Climate Emergency. And what the book is about is there's 7 big obstacles I realised over the last few years, from fatalism, nothing we can do about it. Apathy, it doesn't concern me. Cynicism, you're all the same. Deprioritisation, we've got to deprioritise. It's not a priority, let's focus on other issues. To hostility, we're experiencing it every day, Rosamund and I, cost and gridlock. And the issue of social justice and racial justice are personal to me. They all got me involved in mainstream politics. But, it's also safety, because I'm cognizant that had Rosamund, who's here today, Ella's mum, been aware in 2011, 2012, 13, what was subsequently discovered, the correlation between traffic outside her home, air pollution, and the attacks and crises Ella was suffering, she could have taken action to support Ella and taken a different course. And that's why, with your help, we in London have the biggest number of air quality monitors of any city in the world. Because here's the irony. For those of you that suffer hay fever, you're very grateful, I'm sure, that when there's a weather forecast, they say a high pollen count for tomorrow, right? You can take action to address the antihistamines and so forth. Well, where is the same level of attention to air quality alerts? The air's going to be bad tomorrow. If you're a child with health issues, respiratory issues, if you're pregnant, if you're of a certain age, try and avoid certain. Where's the? We've got in London now air quality alerts and so forth, but we've got to recognise that actually it's the poorest Londoners, it's Black, Asian, minority, I think Londoners who suffer. And by the way, the same applies across the globe. It's the global south suffering the worst consequences of climate change, least responsible for climate change. So yeah, it does keep you up at night.
So I'm glad you raised the issue of your book, because
I wasn't sure whether you would, Frank, so you know what I mean?
so on reading that, I sort of learned that you're an athlete. And
Well, somebody laughed when you said that.
no, true.
Listen,
true.
I've raced Mo Farah. We both did the London Marathon.
2014.
2014, yeah. Who else can say that, right?
Hands up in the room who's done the London Marathon. Well,
No. Hands up who's raced Mo Farah. Now, because I trust you, I'll tell you, but I was 2.5 hours behind him, but we don't mention that.
I still think that's very impressive. Anyway, but seriously, my question is, as a consequence of training and undertaking the marathon in 2014, you developed adult asthma. With hindsight, knowing what would happen, would you still do that?
It's a very good question. So Frank's been very generous. He's not telling the full story, which is when I was a lawyer and I became a salaried partner, I negotiated a car park space in central London for my Saab convertible. That was my negotiating tactic. And then when our first daughter was born, we went on to buy a Land Rover Discovery, because getting a car seat in the back of a 2-door Saab convertible was quite tricksy. I left London 4 times in all the years I had my Land Rover Discovery. I never went off-roading. The reason why I share that is that was my thinking. Climate change was an issue for tomorrow, for them. I wasn't aware about these issues. And Frank is right to ask the question, because I asked myself this question: had I not run the... So what happens, I ran the marathon because the Evening Standard, London's premier paper, asked me to run the Standard. And I was trying to suck up to them to get them to support me to be the Labour candidate to be the mayor. And because Ed Ball said no, he's running for another charity. And so the good news is I ran the marathon, I raised lots of money for charity, I beat Ed Balls. But the bad news is the Standard didn't endorse me to be the candidate, and I got diagnosed with asthma. But that was a light bulb moment for me, because I was curious how somebody who was, an athlete, reasonably fit, could get asthma, breathing air in the city that I loved, doing something that I loved, running. And so I started doing my own research. It was 2014. I'd been a cabinet minister. I was in the shadow cabinet. I thought I knew my stuff. I had no idea that running in London could get you asthma. No idea. And then later on, when I became mayor, I learned about Rosamond and learned about Ella. And I learned that Rosamond was campaigning to have a second inquest, because, apologies, I'm talking about Rosamond like she's not here, but Rosamond's here, so apologies, Rosamond, if I'm talking about you like you're not here, sorry. So the first inquest, I'm paraphrasing, gave the cause of Ella's death as an asthma attack. And Rosamond was curious, and she met some great experts, many of them members of ERG, I should say as well. Met a great lawyer, Jocelyn, and she was campaigning for a second inquest because she then discovered the science, right? Really important. And so I supported Rosamond to try and get a second inquest. And the second inquest was the one that made history, which is, for the first time ever, air pollution was on Ella's death certificate. The first time that Rosamond we know about in the world. First time in the country, definitely. And the reason why that's important is because I remembered when I was an MP in 2006 voting to ban smoking in public places. Do you remember that? Right. Because you could smoke here, right in a public place. Because for a long time, the tobacco companies knew, some experts knew, that passive smoking caused lung cancer. But who remembers Roy Castle? Roy Castle was Guinness Book, the record breakers, but also was a trumpet player. And for 30 years, he was playing in working men's club, never smoked a cigarette a day in his life, got lung cancer from passive smoking. And so, but the Labour government was brilliant in many ways, but was scared about the vocal minority. So rather than whipping MPs to vote to ban smoking, it was a free vote. And I voted to ban smoking in public places, but no idea, because I was aware of Roy Castle, no idea about air pollution and asthma. And so I've got to be honest about two things. One is, I'm not sure if I'd be as passionate about this issue if I hadn't been diagnosed with asthma, because that began my journey to find out about it. But also, had I not met Rosamund, because Rosamund is somebody that has become a friend, but she humanized the issue. I mean, you guys are great. I've said nice things about you. But sometimes you've got to humanize your research, right? You've got to humanize the work you're doing. And you know, Rosamund's given me permission in a nice way to use Ella's case to explain the consequences. Because you know what? Even now on death certificates, when it comes to lung cancer, they don't mention smoking. And so when it comes to deaths, premature deaths linked with air pollution, or asthma, dementia, cancer, heart disease, nobody talks about air pollution. And so I probably would, you know, because I wouldn't have been as passionate had I not been diagnosed, I probably would still run the marathon, even though the standard didn't endorse me, because I got to meet Rosamund and find out about Ella, and hopefully make a small difference. And the great thing is this, Frank, I say this to colleagues around this room, there are great mayors in great cities across the world looking to London in relation to this issue. And if we don't succeed, they're going to get nervous, and they're not going to be as passionate about this issue. And that's why we've got to win the argument. We've got to make sure that ULEZ expansion lands well, because, you know, 30 years ago, politicians were denying climate change. They can't anymore, so they don't deny it, they delay taking action. You can be a denier, a delayer, or you can be a doer, and I want London to be doers.
Thanks. That was a very honest answer, I think. And even though you know your own health has suffered, I think the health of a major city is benefiting from it. So final thought, final question. There's a couple of important elections coming up next year.
There's only one that matters.
Well, not in my question.
That's mine, by the way.
So you're already on record to say that you're going to run for a third term. But my question to you is, if you were involved in the other election and you were elected PM for the day, what would you do? What would be the most important thing to do to improve, well, I assume, people's health?
So a number of things the next Labour government's got to do, which is firstly, look. So if you look at what's happening in America, President Biden's passed this Inflation Reduction Act, massive investment in the green economy, massive subsidies to innovation, technology, renewables. It's the 21st century of the New Deal. So I'd want, if I was Prime Minister for the day, massive piece of investment in this area. Our version of the Inflation Reduction Act in the UK. Second thing is pass Ella's law. So what Rosamund's trying to do is to try and get our government to accelerate action. So rather than waiting to 2040 to bring our air within the WHO limit by 2030. So don't write off a generation. Try and do it now. Third thing is to devolve more powers and resources to leaders of cities and regions. We know our community is the best. Give us the powers and resources to do so. That's the business. The pleasure is I'd nationalise Liverpool Football Club because listen, the only way my team can compete with Man City is with a serious injection of money. And so just like City's owned by the Emiratis, I get Liverpool owned by the government, and we could win the Premier League again, which is really important. Typical
politician, I give you one opportunity and you take four. Mayor Khan, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Good being here. Thank you.